Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and we think you should read when, Brad.
Right now, especially this episode, we have saved the best for today.
Wait, I cannot wait. Well, let's hear it. Lay it on me. Tell me which books you've been saving for
All
today.
right, I have been waiting for this moment. I was going to say all my life, but it hasn't quite been that long. It's been several weeks because Jen, I've had this this urge in me to give you the gift of the best book ever or something that is really close because I always feel like I'm taking your recommendations and reading them and loving them. So today might be the day, Jen, where I
Oh,
have
I
a
can't
book.
wait. You're setting yourself up for a
Yes,
really
I
high
know. So
bar. I can't wait.
let me just tell you a little bit about this book. I wrote down, I was reflecting on some words. This is a book, it's a story, it's an adventure story. It's a story that works through grief in a very significant way. It's a story of becoming. It's an escape story, like or not an escape, like trying to get away from things, but like I'm butchering this, but Jen, you'll read this and you will feel like you are in the flow zone or a portal where time still stands still and you will not want to walk away from this book. It is with you
Wow.
effortlessly. It's a mystery, it's a love story, but it's all of those things effortlessly. Kristin Dwyer, I don't know how to say this. I don't think she tried to have it be all those things. That's what I took away from this book, like no other book I've ever had, Jen. It transported me to the story. So let me just tell you a teeny tiny bit, and I don't want to go too much into the specifics of it, other than just to say, like, it is going to live up to the name of the show. Read this now, okay?
I'm so
So
intrigued. I cannot wait. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So it starts out, it's a really interesting thing that a few books have had before, where it gives you a flash from towards the end of the book. So then you're like, oh my, and you don't, it's not enough to have you know everything, but it gives you, so Atlas is the main character in this book, and Atlas is confronting this person that we know nothing about in the beginning of the book, but technically it's at the end. So then once it morphs into the story or goes back, I don't know, 8 months in time,
Yeah.
you know where point Z is almost, or kind of the end, and you're just in your mind like, how, and then you're on point A and you're like, how in the heck, how in the world, that doesn't even make sense. And then you're starting to question, is that what that meant when I read that? Because it's not working towards that. So that's part of like that's just a teeny layer when you're reading this. But here's kind of the more interesting thing. Atlas, her dad passed away, and it's incredibly hard for her, and she's troubled and having, behavior issues. She's misunderstood at school, but she's just battling grief, and people don't know that, and her mom is trying her best. So they get connected to one of her dad's longtime buddies. Dad was like a hiker, or not a mountain climber, but like a hiker. So his buddy owns this I think it's the Western Sierras, if I'm getting my geography right. He owns kind of a trail system or a place that does hikes, but it's a special program where there are rules. So you have to not give up, but your name is confidential. You pick a new name. And I was having fun with this, like, what would my name be? Because
Wow.
you could pick a name that maybe represents who you are, or you could pick a name to escape or be like, gosh, I wish I was that person, but no one on the trip knows. And so Atlas goes on a trip with her fellow hikers who she kind of starts to piece together, might be in a similar boat to her. Like, they might not be all valedictorian candidates, right, at their school. But here are some of the names that she knows them by. There's King, there's Books. I thought of you on that one. There's Sugar, there's Junior, and I am going to tell you Atlas's name. She chose the name Maps. Okay.
Interesting.
So they go on this adventure, there are stakes associated with it. Every character on the adventure has stakes, which is another unique aspect of it. So kind of the ticking time bomb, but you don't even feel like it's there. But not, I'm just reflecting on it right now. So the story is working towards that point Z, that flashback that we see in the beginning. And then even as I'm setting this book aside and thinking about it in between reading sessions, I'm just like, get me back there. It's just so incredibly immersive. As one disclaimer, and this is the fuddy-duddy, I think might be the right word. There is a little bit of romance. I said it was a love
Oh
story.
dear.
There's
Oh
an
dear.
aspect
I
in
know
there. So
that
my age
you
guideline is
struggle.
going to be, you probably got to be like 30 years or older to read.
How old are the kids?
Yeah, good question. I would say high schoolish.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious, like, because
Yeah.
I know that if there's a kiss, that means they need to be like applying for their AARP membership in your
Yeah, and I
mind.
don't
But
want to
I
give
wonder,
away
like,
the characters or the romantic interaction or interactions. It's not the main thing of the book, but there is a part where there's more than a kiss. So anyway, I don't want that to overshadow things, but I do need to say, Jen, of all the books I've ever recommended, just to you, I love this one, and I hope you love it as much as me. It is called The Atlas
look
of
at that
Us.
cover. That
Yeah, and I
gorgeous
love
cover.
the play on words. I will say, and it comes right in that flashback in the beginning, or I think, I don't know if flashback is the right word, flash forward maybe. Part of the story in the beginning is King, the person that Atlas has this conflict with, where you're like, what is happening right in the beginning? He carries like a journal, a notebook, a hiking guide, something that he's adding stuff to over the course of the book, and that's part of how it all blows up in the beginning. You're like, so you see him writing in it, so you know a little bit more as you know because you're front loaded with that, but it does relate to the title and it adds to the mystique. And then as I'm reading on behalf of Atlas and Maps, I'm like, what is he writing now? Because I know at the end of the
Yeah.
story this happens and it doesn't go really well. So anyway, I could go on and on, but this is such a good one, such a fun one. And now I feel like I'm closer to having paid you back in book talk
You don't
currency.
owe me anything, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. But are you saying that that book goes on the Jennifer LaGarde shelf in your heart? Is that what you're saying? Like that's a book you think I would really love?
It's a book that I hope does, but I'm still trying to calibrate here. You know my heart case, my however you say it better than the bookcase of my heart. I'm still trying to learn, but I know this is how I give gifts at the holiday. I'm feeling
Yeah,
convicted of something or this is not good. I'll pick out things that I want and give them to other people. I
I
might be
do
doing
the
that for
same
you.
thing.
I think I
I do
might be
the
doing
same
that for
thing.
you. Like,
I
so
love
anyway,
it.
you tell me if it ends up on yours. For me, it's a top 5 book ever. Like I really, really love this book. Yeah.
The only thing I have to give you a hard time a little bit because I think at this point, after having done this show, I don't know, 10,000 times or so, there's like 50 or so books that are in the top 5 for you. So I just need you to I love
I know, I know. Sometimes they
it.
bump each other out, and then it
Got
leaves
it.
another book at 5.5 or 6. But this is definitely top 5. And while I was reading it, I think it was probably number one. But then I don't want to set the expectation too high and say this is the best one. So I say top 5 because it feels a little safer.
Reader's Heart, I think, has an infinite amount of space for books in its top 5.
I love it.
So, and also to be more serious about it, I think that what our reader's heart might need at any given moment changes. So, as you're reading a book, if it's really resonating with your heart at that moment, then it is the
Mhm.
best book you've ever read. And then as your heart grows and your experiences change, other books fill that niche. But not about bumping any out. It's just
Mhm.
about having space for lots of them. So I
the,
love
the
that.
the last thing I'll say about the Atlas of Us, and
Uh-huh.
I just want to reiterate, I a lot of times books are escapes and I just love them. I get lost in them and I don't
Sure.
want them to end. This one did that to me more than any other book ever has. I just couldn't believe how I felt transported into this world and I can't even explain it. So I'm excited to talk to you about this someday after you read
Okay.
it because I just want to know
I'm
how
bumping it
you
up to the top of my
yeah, I just want
pile.
to know how you respond to this. Like, am I crazy? I don't know what's happening, but I love this book.
can't wait. All right, no pressure, but I'm going to bump it right up and get it read so that we can talk about it. I love that. And I also think this is just like not to put too much of a like nerdy spin on it, but this conversation represents one of my very favorite things about being a reader is this like need to talk to someone else about the books that you're reading, you know. Donlin Miller, we're dropping names as usual, says like the only thing that readers love more than actually reading great books is talking about those books with other people. Like reading is really a very social activity. So I love the way this conversation sort of uh illustrates that. It's perfect. I can't wait. So I'm going to bump that one to
Yeah.
the top of my list so that way I can get it read. We can chat about it.
I can't wait to hear what you think. I also can't wait to hear what you read.
Okay, well, I have to tell you that for, I don't know, a hot second while you were starting your book talk, I thought, oh my gosh, have we read the same book? Because your book talk for a few of those first few minutes before you started talking about the characters themselves really described the book that I'm going to
Hmm.
share today, too. So many of the themes that you described about grief and the complexity of our relationships with people and trying to prove yourself and all of those things like felt they're all common in the book that I read as well. I'm going to go ahead and share the book that I read. It's called Every Time You Hear That Song by
Hmm.
Jenna Voris. And it's also another young adult book. So we're both reading YA right now. But this book, I have to give a little bit of a disclaimer because the reason I picked it up had to do or has to do with Dolly Parton. Now, our 3.5 viewers may not know that I'm like one of the biggest Dolly Parton fans ever. I just think Dolly's like a walking living saint and try to aspire to be her all the time. But I, even though I had seen this book sort of on like some lists and I knew that it had gotten a few starred reviews, so it was kind of on my radar, it wasn't until I saw an interview with the author who talked about how she had heard this story about Dolly Parton, where Dolly Parton has created what's called a dream box, which is like a time capsule. This is true, in which she's put a song that she's recorded, but she's given strict instructions that that time capsule is not to be opened until her 100th birthday. So whether she's alive or not, we will not get that Dolly song until her 100th birthday in 2046. So that's a real that's a real story. And
That's
Jenna
cool.
Forrest had heard this and she wondered what would happen if in 2046 as the world like watches to have Dolly Parton's dream box opened, they open it up and it's empty, like what would happen if it was missing, right? And she decided she had to write a book that sort of followed that idea. So every time you hear that song is about two lives that are deeply intertwined, one of which is a 17-year-old girl named Darren Purchase who lives in a really small but fictional town in Arkansas called Mayberry. People like us of a certain age know that Mayberry reference well, although I'm not sure teenagers might not. They might not know Mayberry,
I'm
but
holding back the urge to whisper the theme song right now.
I love it. I love it. Well, so Darren, she feels very constricted and held back in her small town of Mayberry, Arkansas. Not only does she like want to leave and go to college in a big city, but she's also having some like crisis of identity. She's questioning her own sexuality and she feels like maybe she's the only person in her town who feels this way. She just wants to escape. That's all she wants. But she also knows those dreams are pretty unrealistic because she lives with her single mom who's been battling cancer, and that cancer diagnosis has like put them in financial peril because you know it's expensive to get sick. And so not only does she worry about leaving her mom, but she also knows that there's not any money really for her to go to college, right? So she has these big dreams but doesn't feel like they're realistic. The only thing that sort of gives her and her mom, who are very, very close, any sort of joy is their love for the music of this country star named Deckley Castle, who also happened to grow up in Mayberry, Arkansas, but who escaped in the 1960s to become this like international superstar, right? So as the book opens, Darren is watching TV and she learns that Deckley Castle has died. She goes home and she and her mom are like gathered around the radio. They're very sad because this person has played such a like monumental role in their lives. And as they're listening to the radio, they learn that Deckley has this time capsule that supposedly has like this album and all sorts of other stuff in it. So fast forward to her funeral, they go to open it and boom, it's empty. But instead of that being the end of the story, it's really just the beginning, because instead of containing all of the things that the time capsule was purported to contain, instead it contains a challenge in which Deckley says, "You didn't think I was just going to give it to you. There's a quest, and you have to know Deckley's music and her life, etc., to find the real time capsule and all the things it's supposed to hold."
That is awesome.
I know. Plus, also a $3 million prize for the person who finds it. So, of course, Darren, she knows this money could change her life, right? Like, could help save her mom from financial ruin, could get her to college. So, she and this person, this guy that she works with and who she's sort of reluctantly friends with, they go off on this like once in a lifetime epic road trip across the South to find the clues and uncover this like time capsule through this epic scavenger hunt. All the while, the book is being told through alternating perspectives. So one chapter is Darren's perspective as she goes on this journey, and then the other chapter is from the perspective of Deckley Castle as she's growing up and trying to navigate life in the 1960s as not only a woman, but a closeted gay woman trying to be a country western star, and how the world is pretty unfair to her. So we have this like really complex and rich story of these two women trying to figure out their lives while also on this quest, this scavenger hunt for this time capsule. The way these two different things are woven together is like masterful. It's magical. I couldn't put this book down. I didn't want it to end. I felt like I knew all the characters and wanted to be their best friends. And I feel like teen readers, high school readers will feel the same way. It's called Every Time You Hear That Song. It's by Jenna Voris. I loved it so much, and I think you should read it right now.
Jenn, this is probably the most inspired I've felt, probably because I might have pulled my own weight this time, for once, but I feel like as a combination,
I
we've got
know.
2 home runs. This is good stuff, Jenn.
Agree. And speaking of good stuff, listen to this expert transition. If our 3.5 viewers want to access an archive of all of our episodes and all of the good stuff that we've curated over the years, where can they go?
They should go to readthisnow.net. You won't regret it.
Great. Thank you, my friend. And thank you to everyone watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy reading, everyone.